What is going on, guys? We are back, keeping it real with TNL. In today's special episode, we are here with Jack, one of our CrossFit San Ramon gym members. We're going to be diving into a very good interview with Jack. Most of you guys know him from the 6:30 a.m. class. But before we go into that, a couple things that we want to talk about. Number one, I'm going to let Lori kind of kick off. We're going to give you guys a little bit of something that you might have missed from our nutrition clinic. It's a little thing about net carbs. Coach Lori is going to explain this concept from Broken Science. Great article. She'll obviously tell you where you could also find the full article on what we're talking about. I'll let her take it over.
All right, so let's talk about net carbs. Big buzzword. You're always hearing it like, hey, if I eat this processed carbohydrate and there's 6 grams of fiber or sugar alcohol, then I'm only getting 12 carbs instead of 18. Let's talk about this. On brokenscience.org, you should be following it for the best realist information. The BTS Truth About Net Carbs by Mary Eads. Her husband, Dr. Eads, coined net carbs in 1980. So when AI, go to Google and type in net carbs, it talks about it being up and coming in the 2000s because of Atkins, and that's absolutely incorrect. 1980s, it was a way to get people to eat more leafy greens and actual vegetables, to get good carbohydrates with good amounts of fiber in them. Because most of us watching and in this room are not hitting that like 28 to 35 fiber intake for men and women, right? So when you're looking at net carbs, it really only applies to when you're eating real food. So if you have cauliflower and there's 5 grams of carbs and 2 grams of fiber, that's a net of 3 carbs. That's how it really works, okay? And that's important because for those of us that macro balance, or it's the beginning of the year and we were just like headstrong into like good protein and good fats and watching our carbs, remember, all carbs are not created equal. Head on over to brokenscience.org and read that article. It'll take you about 2 minutes, chock full of amazing information that will deeply impact how well you do with your nutrition plans for not only the New Year resolution that you made, but for your entire life. So I wanted to share that. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And guys, one of the biggest takeaways that I was able to take away from that article after reading it myself, this whole entire net carb, usually if you see it on a box in a store, more than likely it's going to be false. This whole concept, just like Coach Lori said, it's with real food like cauliflower and broccoli, Brussels sprouts, things that have natural carbs and natural fiber, not with things that are made in a factory with artificial ingredients that they call fiber or they call carbs or sugar alcohol or these things that aren't from nature. So very good stuff there. Now, we're going to be moving into what you guys are all here for, our interview with Jack. So everybody most people know you. You are a staple with the 6:30 a.m. crew. I kid you not. The only time I think that I ever see you gone is if it's like Christmas vacay time. But other than that, from basically January to December, you are locked in. And so obviously that's one of the reasons that you're on the show is because you are very consistent as a member. But not only that, you have your family here as well, and you keep them on track with you. So the first question that we're going to dive into is, at what age did you begin CrossFit and why did you start?
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here and happy to talk to all the people that I know and many who I don't know. So I have 2 answers to the question. And it depends on whether you want to know when I started CrossFit actually or when I knew I started CrossFit.
Okay.
The earliest I started CrossFit was with Tim in 2010. So that was 15 years ago.
Oh, wow, 15 years.
And, but I didn't know I was doing CrossFit at the time. I had just moved from New York and living in Lafayette in a rental house and with my family. And I had in New York for a couple of years before that, come to some realizations about my life and what I wanted to do and listening to myself more. I started with a personal trainer and was looking for a personal trainer out here and got connected with Tim. And, he didn't wear a CrossFit badge or, say anything particularly, in terms of the lingo. He was just a guy there to help me. And he was very helpful. He was very encouraging. I was also into biking a little, so we did some bicycle training. I had no equipment other than you all laugh at this. Those like multi weightlifting machines. It's like 6 things in one, and you can do this, and you can, change the weights and press with your feet and pull your shoulders back and do all these things.
Both flex on.
Yeah, did all these things. I lugged that thing from among all the other stuff I brought from New York, and that was what I had to work with. Plus whatever you do without equipment. And Tim would occasionally bring, a kettlebell or something to give us more to do, and I was just following what he did. We worked out a couple times a week, I think it was. And then I moved a year later, bought a house, and started to listen to Tim's encouragement that I get some equipment. So we got a barbell, and then some weights, and Tim would frequently bring things and just give me things too. I have some weights that were left over from the overhaul of the weights at the gym that were perfectly usable. They just weren't pretty anymore. And so I started to acquire stuff, and it was at least 3 years before I realized what I was doing. And he wouldn't say, "You're welcome to come down to the gym," and I was afraid to do that. I was very intimidated by the whole lifting weights thing. So I had never done any of that as any time in my life. And but somewhere around there, he encouraged me to he taught me about CrossFit, and there were the CrossFit Games coming up. And so somewhere after 3 or 4 years after starting with them, I actually entered the CrossFit Games. And, I was happy that I finished. It was kind of a whole thing. It was an eye-opening experience. So that's a long answer to your question. And then I knew I was doing CrossFit, but I still wasn't coming to the gym.
You were still doing it with
I'm still doing it just with Tim. We upped it to like 3 times a week. I had all the equipment, and I realized he was at various times just having me do the WOD, although I would modify it frequently for whatever was going on, or whatever he thought I needed. And it wasn't until probably 2000, it wasn't until I'd been doing this for 5 or 6 years that I was ready to go to a gym. And so I started to go to local gym. And I was living in Oakland at that time, and started to ride my bike to the nearest CrossFit. And I was going there. I still wasn't going daily, but I was going to a CrossFit gym, and I clearly was the CrossFit person at that point.
It's awesome, Jeff.
Awesome. I love that. It was like when you're a parent and you sneak the vegetables in your children's food.
Yeah.
If you were CrossFit,
What's in the cookies?
We can call it that, so you weren't scared of it, right? You're like,
Exactly.
I love what you're doing right now. This cake full of celery is delicious.
My confidence grew from going to the gym, and then I had a job that required me to go to San Francisco every day after about a year of going to the local gym. So I was going to one of the CrossFit, I guess, in the financial district in San Francisco, which had a different member profile than the one I'd been going to. It was, all the people were all in their 20s and 30s, not, a decade or two older than that. And it was more intense because it was a lot of people that crammed into more person per square inch. So we all had to have our mentally carved out little squares. We didn't, dare go outside them for fear of hitting someone with the barbell or just dropping, so on. So it was crammed in there. But I was going every day at that point before work pretty early. And so that's what got me into being able to go early.
So that's where that habit had kind of came.
That's where it started.
So you were forced to go in because you had to work out early, and because you had to go to San Francisco.
I had to go to work, so
you had to
start to San Francisco, and I went to work from there.
Oh wow, nice! So that's when that started.
And at some point along the way, it became. I mean, it was always something I looked forward to, but it became something that if I didn't do, I felt bad, or I didn't. Just like it was something I needed to do. And if I went for a day or two without doing it, I would just feel kind of, lack of those endorphins was not helping me.
Yeah.
So you were able to tell the difference between the days you worked out and the days that you didn't, just mentally, physically, I'm assuming.
And by the week, after Monday through Friday, then by the weekend I was ready for a break. But by Monday I was raring to go.
Oh, I love that. That's the feeling. I love it. All right. So before moving out west, tell us a little bit about your life back east. job, hobby, activities, and I heard through the grapevine you wrote a book. So let's cover it all. Like not too much pressure. But
Don't overthink what the book was. Well, so when I like to refer to it as my prior life because I changed so many things when I around the time when I moved out here. I got remarried, I had 2 kids, changed my job. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I learned how to cross. But I was a securities lawyer, a Wall Street securities lawyer in New York for several decades. I had a very, I lived in Manhattan. I worked down on Wall Street. My clients were all the, Wall Street investment bankers. They were the work was extremely interesting, but it was extremely demanding. So it was a high stress, long hours, weekend work, evening work. I didn't have kids, and I was married, but I didn't have kids. And that was kind of my life. I didn't do any physical exercise. I was just working all the time. When I wasn't working, maybe I'd go on vacation, but it was I didn't have a really balanced life, let's just say. And but I was into it, and I was successful, and I was working in a very a firm with a very high reputation, a national reputation, and I was going out speaking conferences, and so I was in the course of that. That's where the book came from. I was back when Enron went under 2000, and there was all of that financial catastrophe. And Congress passed a law called Sarbanes-Oxley to reform all the things that were wrong about corporations, corporate governance, and accounting, and whistleblowers, and all the things that didn't work right. Now this law put a patchwork of repairs, and it was a lot, and it affected everyone in my professional world. And part of what I was doing in my profession was, in my firm, was I was leading the charge on keeping people up to date on things, the memos that went out, new developments, and so on. So this became almost a full-time second job, keeping on top of all this. In the course of my writings, I realized there's a book here where people need something to refer to other lawyers and other investment bankers and financial people. And so I ended up writing this thing that was a legal treatise on this law that became the desktop Bible for pretty much all the other lawyers in the country that were working in this area. And for what it was a bestseller. It sold 2,000 copies or something. But it was 3 volumes. It was like this big, weighed 10 pounds or something. And then we updated it throughout. So that's my book.
That's incredible.
I left it behind.
Okay, I know that there's a quote unquote script here, but there's so much to unpack from it. I'm not going to go super crazy, but I'm just curious. But
yeah.
What was the initial urge that caused you to make such a large change? Like this is East to West Coast.
Yeah.
Different wife, different life. No kids. Like those are big things that we're doing here.
Well,
what causes that?
It's at a certain point in your life, you reflect upon yourself, and I know everyone. This happens a lot to people, and I did too. In my early 50s, I started to think about where I was, what I was doing. I still felt I had time left to do more, and what would that be? And I'd already been doing this for a way longer time than I expected to. When I started out, I figured that I'd be there for doing that for a few years, and then it turned into several decades. So it was kind of time for something else, and in my mind, and I also realized that I hadn't necessarily been listening to myself as much as I should. Well, that was really the essence of it. I figured out how to listen to myself. And what do I want? What haven't I done that I wish I had and I could still do. So there were a whole lot of things turned out. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to be healthier. I wanted to not live in a big city because I was going to be raising kids, and I didn't want to do that in a big city. And once you decide, and I wanted to have a new career. And once you have all that stuff open to you, you can live anywhere. Really, I didn't have an idea of what the new career was going to be at the time, but I ended up starting a management consulting business to law firms, and I manage themselves better. And that's what I'm still doing, helping them bridge technology to what they do. So I've been working on AI. But that's the essence of what got me to start changing it.
Wow. So impressive.
That's so impressive. That's
Well,
such a deep introspection. Right?
as I took the first step, the other step, it just all unfolded. The other steps were just easier actually to take.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just kind of happened.
If you guys
Didn't feel like work.
Wow. If you guys are watching this is honest gold, right? That you guys are getting from Jack. Because obviously, if you've obviously thought about some of the stuff that he's mentioned, I'm sure most of us, as we go through life, have obviously thought, is this what we want? Is this where we see ourselves? Is this the route that we want to go? And some people allow the fear of change to allow them to continue to tiptoe in this life that they may not be happy with. And obviously that takes them away from being able to create what could have been if they would have had that courage, as Jack said, to take that first step. But it definitely takes taking the first step, having that courage to acknowledge, this isn't the life that I think I should be living. And being willing, despite all that may come with that choice, to take a step and move out into what you want to do. You only get one life. There's no redos. So you got to start making moves. And Jack is a prime example, on a high level. This isn't some guy who was working at some random place. And okay, I guess it's time for a change. He was writing books that were obviously a staple in his industry. And he was able to have that realization to make a change of that nature. So that's a huge deal. Thank you for being so kind to share that with us, Jack. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, I have one thing to add to that on your point. What I made this decision to leave my law firm, which had the tradition of people started out as young lawyers out of school and stayed there. If they became partners, stayed there for the rest of their careers, and they didn't really hire people laterally. So it was a very stable, group of people who'd been there the whole time. And so when I announced at the stage I was in that I was leaving, they were very surprised because people didn't really do that. And several of my colleagues, contemporaries, took me out to lunch, individually, and said, I really would like to do what you're doing, but I'm afraid. I can't. My kids are in school, and I don't feel like I can take the financial risk, or whatever it was, but there was several people who did that, and I was surprised.
So much food. That's amazing, Jack. I can keep on going. I'll let Coach Laurie dive in a little bit with any questions. Do you have any questions?
That hits me is even here at the gym, members, clients, some of my patients, it's the fear factor that keeps us from living our best life, best health, best wealth, best marriage, best everything. We get stuck in a rut, or especially in California, for those of you that live here watching this, it's a rat race. You got to really keep up just to put gas in the car and heat the house and pay $13 a dozen for eggs, right? Even before the bird flu. So people get really stuck into that, and they get married to the things and the perception that people have of them. They get locked into that.
Well, you get a self-image too.
Yeah, because
it's
like this vicious cycle. So Jack did this monumentous thing. You could have literally retired from that job. You could have rode that wave, had all the money, had all the, and just been it's good enough. But you took the time to say, no, this is what I want, and let's go. and you can't live in that fear. We could all be stuck in that fear. It's how you and I complete career changes for us. Like we got out of the cycle, thought about what we wanted, and like made change, and it was the best thing. So I love this. I'm gonna ride this wave of excitement.
It's the same thing applies to me in terms of sports and athletics too. So I, through my dad was never into sports, and this was before that, things had become, I think, more. I grew up in the '60s, and so this was before people were into going to the gym and all of that. But my parents were actually anti-sports. It's like my mother said, sports is a waste of time. She'd watch the Olympics and she'd say, sports is a waste of time. My dad used to watch on TV, but he never did anything. He never had participated in it. So I had no, not family support. It was like family unsupport for doing things like that. And, I didn't know what my abilities were or were not, but I was not an athletically oriented kid. And I was also, I was kind of like the brainy weakling kind of kid, at least in my own mind. I wasn't feeling up to it. I was the last kid picked in school and they picked the teams and so on. So I had this self-image, which wasn't very constructive of what my abilities were. And that's just carried through. And I did a little biking and a little recreational tennis, but I never really thought of myself as, someone who was into doing athletic stuff. So I had to overcome that as part of just getting fit.
I thought
Now, and now I feel good. My kids are into sports.
Yeah.
And I encourage them.
They play so many sports. They're incredible. They do so much. Yeah.
they're here all the time too. I was going to say, you guys just witnessed somebody explain how, for a period of time, he allowed a paradigm shift from a young age dictate his entire outlook from that point. A lot of us don't realize that there's still things that we hold on from our original paradigm of life not being picked first, or being told that you may not be good. And it's literally dictated how you think about yourself every minute of the day since then. And you haven't taken the time to be like, maybe that person who made that comment doesn't know what they're talking about. They're just as lost in life as most people are, running their mouth, offering opinions for no reason. And that's one of those things, obviously, Jack was willing to take that introspective look and then make a choice afterward once he realized maybe some of these choices I'm making aren't even mine. I'm just doing them because of what Lori kind of mentioned, fear. And once you realize that they're making choices from a place of fear and not a place of faith and confidence in going where you want it, that once you learn how to switch your mindset and know how to analyze your thoughts from that point of view, that is a game changer alone. But oh my goodness, I didn't expect us to get super deep, Jack. Let's get back to the gym stuff. So you're in here basically 6:30 a.m., 5 days a week. What is the secret to your consistency and the discipline?
Well, I kind of gave some background on that, and it just kind of crept up on me. But the 6:30 thing started because, well, after COVID and doing bike, I moved back to Alamo from Oakland during COVID, and reconnected with. I had stayed in touch with Tim and Lori, even when we weren't working out as trainer and student, but reconnected since I was physically now, in their backyard again, and did Zoom classes at a later time, convenient to me. But we wanted to get our kids involved, and partly because they were doing Taekwondo and they needed something to balance. They're both black belts, but they were doing more advanced Taekwondo, but they still needed some more advanced, some more balanced exercise, we thought, as part of the program. So, and they had played around watching us at home doing it sometimes. And so, I convinced them to come in with me, and 6:30 was the only time that worked because they had school. So we were coming before school, and we started doing this last year, and we came the whole school season, pretty much every day, and they were be troopers, and they kind of were getting into it. And they're now 14 and 15, and my 14-year-old decided to go back to competitive swim team, which they had both been doing. And then we told them they had to choose, and they chose Taekwondo over swimming. They were doing both. And he went back to swimming and more or less stopped Taekwondo, but still doing it a little bit. And I can't get him to not. And so he's not coming in the mornings anymore, although he occasionally shows up. But my older son is now, at some point between the beginning of last year and this year, he has totally surpassed me in all movements that we do in the gym, and by a large percentage. And he's imbued with a lot of growth hormones at the moment, so that's certainly helping. He's eating like twice his weight in food every day. His growth is helping him a lot, but I think they're starting to develop a feeling that which is very good, that this is should be part of their life.
I love this. I hear this and I'm like, what I wouldn't give to turn back time and have a family that encouraged me. Because CrossFit's my first sport, or I did nothing before CrossFit as a sport or enjoying working out for 13 years.
It's kind of like what I was.
Yes, nobody did anything. And then when I wanted to do stuff, we didn't exactly have the money because public school stopped including all that in the mix back when I was in junior high and high school. So to have that is everything. They'll look back. They appreciate it now, but if they choose to be parents someday, they're gonna be like, wow, mom and dad, talk about leading by example and the accountability you hold them to and the discipline that you instill in them. I would be in the top. It'd be my inauguration today because first one president. That's gonna let me tell you that right now.
See, kids, if my kids are listening,
if you're listening,
listen to me.
Listen to Coach One. Well, they won't listen to you because you're dad mom. But one day they'll look back and be like, "Wow, talk about the best life, blessed life, right? That those are the things." So, as a parent and a coach and a CrossFitter who you started their athletic career in CrossFit, I couldn't think more highly of you. You're amazing. So I wanted you to know it's just amazing. Amazing. All right. So now we're going to switch a little bit about any regrets about fitness. We talked a little bit about why it wasn't in your childhood, but do you regret not starting it when you were still too busy? And
why wouldn't I regret it if I like it now? I would have liked it then. If I had the right start to do more.
Looking back, could you have found time given your schedule? Because now you schedule your workout.
You make time for whatever it is that's important to you. So yeah, I would have made time when we do it. And even before then, in college or law school or whatever, there's time to go do those things. Other people do it.
Yeah.
Totally. So no, I do wish I would have done more. I wish I would have done a little bit more with more, organized team sports too. So I was never part of that, and that's a whole dimension of character and so on that I think is important.
Absolutely. And then so basically, right before we get into our rapid fire, the final question, we're going to give you a chance to kind of speak to anyone who may be watching this who is on the fence about starting CrossFit or coming down to the CrossFit gym or coming to CrossFit San Ramon specifically. What would you offer to them? What advice would you tell them, about not being scared, or also to anyone who just started CrossFit and it's week one?
Well, I'd say a few things. I'd say it looks kind of intimidating when you show up and you see all these people seem to know what they're doing, picking up these heavy weights and grunting and cheering and so on. And I'd say that try not to let that intimidate you and just focus on you taking your steps forward, because you will get there. And I guess I would also say everyone is extremely nice and supportive. So even that stern-faced guy over in the corner who's built really muscly and lifts these weights to make the barbell bend, if you catch him when he doesn't have the barbell on his back, which would be dangerous, just say hello, and you'll find out everyone is super supportive and super encouraging. And And then I guess the third thing I'd say is get the coaches, get some private coaching when you're getting started, because you've got to do it right to not get hurt, and that you need a coach for that. But the coaches are extremely encouraging, and it makes you feel like yeah, you can do it.
Okay, perfect.
All right, guys. So this was obviously very, very deep. I would love to talk to you for hours. So much stuff.
Part two.
Yes, there's definitely going to be a part two. Hey, comment if you have some questions that you want us to ask Jack in part two. Now, that said, we're going to move into the hot seat, rapid fire questions. This is more fun. Coach Lori and I did this with Coach Tim. So now you're going to be number two. We're starting on the hot seat. What is your favorite local restaurant?
Well, we just discovered a restaurant, a Korean restaurant in Concord called Tom Cheap, which in Korean means soup house. So it's not a barbecue place. They do have some of that, but it's more other kinds of Korean food, and it's the best one that we've found in the area.
Awesome. All right. What's your favorite CrossFit movement?
Hang powerfully.
That's a good one.
Always has been.
Yes.
All right. Favorite place to visit or vacation?
Paris.
Paris.
All right. To France a lot, and went there on many and like to go there a lot.
Do you mind? I don't want to ask. I don't know if it's weird. Which honeymoon?
The second.
Oh, second. Okay. Okay. I'll get
That was fun. That's great. How about a favorite movie?
I don't really have a favorite movie. I like movies in general, and one of the aspects of my childhood was I never went to the movies. My family just didn't really go, and then I got to college, and they had lots of film festivals and movies for 50 cents every night, and all the old classics and so on. So I just went to the movies like every day practically. So I just like movies in general. I suppose one of the ones I liked from quite a long time ago was called Memento, which was it was a little bit of an experimental thing, but it was about a guy who had short-term memory loss. He had been involved somehow, and he was trying to unravel the mystery of his wife's murder. He was apparently a suspect, but he couldn't remember anything for more than about 5 or 10 minutes. So writing things on, he would get new clues, he'd write them on his arm. It was very weird, interesting.
Cool. Really quick, this one's off point. I'm just curious. Where did you go to college?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice one. Now, last question. If you can sit down and talk with any person of any time, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
That's a hard one, but thinking about it, I go with the first thought I had, which was Albert Einstein. And, and the two things that I would be very interested in hearing from him if he knew how to say it, because sometimes it's all intuitive, we don't really know, was, how in the world did he think of all these amazing things 100 years before anyone could prove that they were true about the way the gravity works and flying works and space works and all of that? How was his mind able to do that? And then the second thing I would want to talk about is, as he became an activist later in his life, how did he really feel about what had become of some of his science in terms of the atom bomb, what it had unleashed on the world, and would it have happened anyway, or could he have thought about ways in which it could have been controlled in some way better before it got unleashed? I don't know. It'd be interesting.
Very exciting. Jack, I'm gonna say this. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and like I said, I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't expect this conversation to go as smooth and as well as it went between all three of us. But now that I kind of see,
we're old friends.
Yeah, and it was more impressive, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Really appreciate it. It's been wonderful.
You guys are inspiring to me.
You're inspiring to us, and your discipline and consistent actions should be an inspiration to everyone. So we always say at the end of our podcast, stay positive, stay consistent, and keep it real. And you're always positive, and you're always consistent, and you're always real. So maybe we
So saying half of life is showing up. So
yeah.
Show up in the morning and you don't feel like it, but show up anywhere.
Yeah. So hopefully, those watching today, people that don't even know about CrossFit San Ramon or hearing about the podcast and tuning in, and they're like, you know what? I want to be more like Jack. And that's gonna happen. And they're gonna make some good changes. They're gonna do some introspection. They're gonna get to a gym, maybe CrossFit disguise until they're okay. That's so Tim too. That's very Tim. Doing all the CrossFit all the time. He's so stealth right now. It's great. But yeah, I thank you so much for sharing with everyone. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at CrossFit SR925. Don't forget to follow Coach Laurie at Coach Laurie Hill 92 or Coach Laurie 925, and follow me, Coach Ty, Coach 925. Jack, you want to plug your business or say anything? Okay.
No.
Jackson, keep it low key. It's none of your business. Still, topical question. Likes guys in San Ramon, do not be like school on Saturday. There has to be class. Keep it classy, San Ramon.